Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to the patch notes of beta patch 1.3, the brand new update to Mount & Blade 2 Bannerlord, the update we have been waiting for 2.5 years. Now I have already made a video talking about the main features, and again you can see them right here if you're just interested in that. Go check out that video. But I also wanted to make a video going through all the patch notes as well. Now I'm not going to go through every single change, fix, etc. I've gone through and highlighted the more important things that you guys can see on your screen, and you can also see just how many patch notes there actually are right here. So there is a ton in this update, but they kind of do shed a light on a lot more stuff, and they kind of again want kind of talk a bit more about how these features work. So I think it's interesting and worthwhile to go through. They also talk about when this patch will actually release as well, so we can kind of expect to see that obviously in the future when we get to it. But once again, if you're more interested in a shorter, more visual video, then again check out my overall of the patch over on the channel. I'll leave a link to it down below in the description. And of course, if you haven't already, please do consider dropping a like and a comment down below and subscribing. We'll be covering obviously a whole wealth of Bannerlord. We cover Bannerlord mods, and we'll be smashing war sales when it does release, whenever that may be. So let's start off taking a look at the patch notes. And as I said, I have gone through and highlighted really the important things that I want to talk about. So first things first, the patch is currently available on Steam, and you can go and find it really easy to install it by right-clicking, going down to properties, going down to betas, hitting this button right here, and then finding beta 1.3 and then clicking it. And then once you're done with the beta, you maybe want to go back and play with your mods or do whatever else you want to do on the live patch. Just come up here, hit none, and that'll sort it out. It'll go back, it will revert to the actual live version of the game, and you'll be good to go. I also have been getting so many questions about when this is going to be coming to console, when it is going to release on console. Are you able to play it on console right now? So again, they don't address much of that, but we can infer from what they say here when that's actually going to happen. So no, you can't play the beta at all on the console. I don't think you can even play it on Epic Games or anything. I think it has to be Steam because of the way the infrastructure is set up. But right here, they do mention right here that the sticking to the live branch and jump into version 1.3 with the release of war sales. So this kind of infers that the patch itself 1.3 is going to go live when war sales releases. Again, we don't have a release date for war sales, and I imagine that's going to be the same for console as well. Again, they don't explicitly say it, but I imagine when war sales releases, it's going to be built on patch 1.3, and because of that, that means when console gets the game, they're going to be on 1.3 as well. So again, still some time to wait for you console players, which obviously really sucks, but still, you know, again, you kind of have a much better idea of when you're going to be getting your hands on it. And honestly, again, with version 1.3 releasing in beta, I think we can also assume that they are basically stress testing, fixing the bugs and stuff for war sales. So I would imagine the game, I mean, they say full, right? So they have what, another 2 months left of full to release war sales if there's not going to be a delay, which I don't think there will be if 1.3 is coming out. So again, I would look to it maybe a month and a half, maybe early November we'll be seeing it. So again, that's probably how long we're going to have to wait. We also as well talk about the game is possibly save game compatible, but it's not guaranteed, so they don't change a ton of stuff. Again, I'd always back up your saves, make multiple saves just in case if you're planning on moving over. But the new stealth stuff is really cool and definitely worth a while. Here as well, they do a big breakdown of everything new. Like, these are all the main features. So we have like alliances, trade agreements, stealth, deserting, new parties, random events, which are actually probably kind of turning into one of my favorite things about the patch, honestly. Parlay, the movement control over caravans, and we'll go obviously into all of this stuff, the new weapon types like the slings, etc. And the new menu videos as well, which again are a real highlight for me. They look really cool. And I think as well, one thing that really went onto the radar in this, but I don't think they bring it up here whatsoever, is the new art changes that they've made. The game looks so much better than it does in 1.2. Honestly, they've done some real massive improvements to the AI lighting. Right here, they talk about it with the scene atmosphere right here. We moved away from an automated interpolated of atmosphere based on time of day and instead introduced a greater range of custom environments that are tailored to cover specific times. We further fine-tuned the atmosphere values in general and improved our skybox textures. And that is 100% correct, and it looks amazing. They've done such a good job. They've also improved the existing global illumination for various towns, castles, and keeps. And oh boy, does it look great. Night battles in Bannerlord pre 1.3, you're basically like having to squint your eyes. It's like the Battle of Winterfell. You don't know what the hell's going on. You're seeing swords going, but you don't know who's who, especially on YouTube when they compress it down. But now I think the battles look so much more vibrant, so much more visible, especially at nighttime. And again, they just look so much better, not only in battles with the lighting, but also with the like the UI pictures when you recruit soldiers, the generals and stuff, and when you're talking to people. Just like the whole game kind of feels like it's taken like an engine upgrade, and it's really, really awesome. So again, this is like something that really went onto the radar right here, but it is a big improvement. Again, we have a ton of fixes across the board. You'll be seeing these fixes basically throughout the game, and it's actually pretty massive. Everything's been improved. Again, they've really updated the UI. I haven't actually gone ahead and highlighted anything in the UI section because it's kind of been like a big wide brush that they've gone over the entire game with, and have basically just again improved, changed stuff. The actual call to battle screen when you're starting a battle has been changed. Basically the whole wealth of UI improvements have been done. Again, billions of fixes right here. And then we move on to one of the new features. Again, this is probably the highlight of the patch for me, honestly. I was messing around with it earlier on stream yesterday, and yeah, it is really, really fun, and I am very excited to see what they do in the future with this. I feel like a lot of the stuff that has been implemented in this are laying the foundations for some really, really cool stuff, and I hope that they do expand upon it and continue to improve it. So we have Stealth and Disguises, which is the brand new feature, which was originally supposed to be in the story-driven DLC, but they repurposed it and released this for free, which is cool. So they've implemented the stealth system. You can use it in prison breaks, from a dungeon, and also hideouts. Enemies can detect the player through sight, sound, and a reaction to movement, noises, bodies, or their alarmed allies. So again, if someone sees someone fighting, they'll raise the alarm and kind of get more soldiers to come over to you, and you maybe even fail your mission. Their vision is obviously influenced by the elevation and light exposure. So once again, if you're doing these hideouts in daytime, which you can do, you're much more likely to be spotted, and also elevation as well. So if they have the high ground, again, they have like a boost to their ability to spot you as you skulk around and try and take out their comrades, which again is pretty interesting. There are also now natural hiding spots across the actual maps of these hideouts and stuff, so you're kind of, it very much reminds me of like Assassin's Creed. I brought it up on stream and people seem to agree with me, so it feels very much like a Assassin's Creed style combat. You can also throw rocks as well to distract enemies, camp behind them. You do bonus damage through stealth damage. I really like as well that there are now weapons like daggers are specifically designed to do extra stealth damage, I believe, or they're more kind of classed at that, which I think is cool, because previously you would never use a dagger over a sword or a two-handed weapon or a spear. Now daggers feel like they kind of have a decent spot in the game, and again, utilizing them to do good damage is always really cool. And I also really like the fact that they've gone and implemented roguery skill, impacting the amount of damage you do, and also the amount of noise you make as well. So if you've got a really good roguery, you can probably just like sprint around everywhere and be like the darkest of nights, going in and taking people out is kind of cool. However, they don't have any ability to gain roguery skill from doing stealth attacks, which I think is a real missed opportunity. Like, that should be giving you stealth and allow you to upgrade it. Maybe not a ton of experience, but continue to boost it up for more of this stealth, because it would encourage you to do more stuff like this. They have spoken on the forums about doing that and implementing that change, and I think it's a must. You should 100% be getting roguery experience by doing stealth kills and stuff, because it just encourages you to explore this different avenue of gameplay and doing prison breaks and stuff. And yeah, you could probably abuse it and farm it or whatever, but again, that's a single player game. It's fun to experiment stuff that isn't sieging. So again, I really hope they do implement the fact that you can get roguery experience by doing stealth kills. It seems like a no-brainer to me. This does also mean as well, I haven't actually highlighted this at all, but this does also mean as well that they have actually reworked how bandit hideouts now work. You can attack them during the day or in the nighttime like previously, but yeah, now you go around the camp to begin with, you make some assassination attempts, you kill some scouting guards, and then you summon your army in to come and attack, and you kind of almost like ambush the enemy right at the end. It's super cool the way they've done it, and again, I'm really impressed by this mechanic, and again, I hope they do more stuff like this in the future by setting up maybe the abilities to like ambush armies and different types of mission types with like, you know, assassinations and stuff. There's so much they could do with this mechanic, and I was really impressed by the hideouts. It was a really fun like gameplay loop of going around assassinating the sentries, then calling your army in and ambushing their force as they're kind of all sitting around, and you have your soldiers coming in from every side, and it feels like a prepared attack, and it was really cool. On top of that, though, they have also changed the way that dungeons and prison breaks work. So again, much like with the hideouts, you're going to be moving around and stealth killing guards for a bit. You're going to find the cell, then you're going to try to break out whoever you're trying to rescue, and then you have to decide, as once you do that, the guards will start getting a bit more suspicious and start patrolling and obviously trying to hunt you down, and then you're going to have to decide if you do try and continue to be stealthy or you just try and fight your way out. And because of that, we also now have 6 new dungeon scenes that have been designed for stealth gameplay. I would imagine that is one for each of the factions. On top of all of that as well, we do also have a third implementation of equipment as well. So we now also have a stealth loadout that you can pick from. I feel like with this third equipment layout being added, we should get a fourth with sieges. You know, if they've gone through the effort of implementing an entire another outfit just for this stuff, like why not give us a siege outfit? Because sometimes I want a bow and arrow in sieges, but I don't want it in land battles and stuff. So if you're going to do this, at least go and give it for us for sieges, please. And then the final improvement to the stealth stuff is they've also added a way for you to infiltrate cities. Previously, it was just you'd go up to a city, if you're a war of them or whatever, you would try to break in and it'd be a random percentage chance, and even if it was 90%, you'd still mess up and then you'd lose all your army and it'd just be really stupid and silly, and all the mechanics like that in the game, like convincing lords to join you and stuff, like on a dice roll, just seems so unsatisfying and just not fun at all. Now you actually have to try and infiltrate the town, so you'll go in like beggars outfits, and the first time you do it, you'll basically have to go around and talk to everybody and try to find the specific person to make contact with them. I'd like to see them actually add more to this, because right now it just feels a bit like arbitrary. You're just going around talking to every single person until you find the right one. It'd be kind of cool if there were like skill checks you had to pass along the way, like maybe do it with the conversation system or something, or, you know, I'd love for them to actually implement you know, make it a bit more risky when you're moving around of whether or not you're gonna get caught. You know, you have to pass certain skill checks to do it. If you're staying in there, the longer you stay in there, the riskier it gets, and maybe guards will come after you and you have to talk your way out of it or something. You know, there's like a lot they could do with it, and it's cool. Again, much better than the previous system, but I would still like to see, you know, kind of the actual pressure, because right now it's like you're gonna walk around, no one's gonna suspect you, and then you're eventually gonna find your target, whereas there's actually no like pressure or any risk for doing it. And also I'd like to see them implement more like sabotage missions whilst you're there. Like with this new system, they could implement so much stuff of like, you know, sneaking your way into a town and you know, meeting up with your contacts and then burning down workshops or destroying the garrison, or, you know, there's like poisoning the food. Like there's so much they could now do with it, and I'm really hoping they do continue to improve this feature, because again, this is all really cool, but I'm hoping it's just the beginning of like really enhancing stealth gameplay and giving the player loads of like espionage stuff to do. Could be so awesome. Like imagine eventually building up a resource that you're implementing, and then you can like initiate certain levels of stealth and roguery as you progress, and the more of this resource you get, and inevitably you end up getting so much that you can like call for an assassination, which is super hard, but you got good skills. I mean, you go and kill Durhart. Like what more could a man want in a campaign? Next up, we move on to battle and sieges. So again, they've improved a whole wealth of things. Again, there's so many fixes as we make our way down when it comes to battles. The main thing though that they implemented were the focus on sling weapons. I've messed around with this, so sling weapons are tied to throwing skill now, and again, I haven't really had decent throwing skill to really test out the sling, but there are multiple types of them. There's 3 different types of I guess quality of sling, and there's also 3 types of bullets as well that you can obviously utilize with them slings, which will give you more damage. They do blunt damage, so they're focused around armor piercing, which is great in the late game. However, not many units actually utilize the sling. The sling is mainly used by like bandits, looters, etc., and villagers as well, you'll see. utilizing that weapon. So again, I feel like it's cool to have it. It's cool to have the animation in there, but it'd be nice like if one of the factions got access to them as a mainline troop. Like it's a cool weapon, right? So why not see it in there? And again, they're good armor piercing. I don't think it's ever going to take down, but if you end up getting up to like 200 throwing skill, you're going to be doing some serious damage, because again, they can pierce through multiple people with certain perks. They can destroy shields really effectively. Like, this weapon could be a very, very useful weapon. I'm also interested to see how they're going to be utilized on ships with war sails as well. Like, the sling could be great at taking down certain things and utilizing that quite nicely. On top of everything else, they've also completely reworked how simulations work for battles and also in sieges as well, making morale a big part of how simulations work, which is something I really like. I always felt like simulation, like auto-resolving battles, were always way too harsh, way too brutal, and you'd end up losing like tier 7 soldiers, and like, great, what, I'm just gonna fight a pointless battle so I don't lose my Britannian veins or whatever else along those lines. So now Lord's parties now lose morale after losing rounds in simulated combat. So you'll see like every time a round ticks, you'll notice it when you're playing. You'll see like numbers trickle down every couple seconds, and that's basically a round of combat. So if you're winning the battle, you're more likely, again, you'll be taking some casualties, but you're going to be able to reduce the enemy morale more and more. And that's important, because when the enemy's morale hits 0, they will automatically lose the battle. On top of that, parties above 50 morale are less likely to take casualties, whilst parties below 50 morale are less likely to inflict casualties. So again, if you've got like 100 morale and you're fighting someone with 60, they're going to get in that red way more likely, under 50, and then all of a sudden they're taking more casualties, they're dealing less casualties, and that's like a compiling effect. So again, this is supposed to simulate elite soldiers being able to take on these smaller forces, and I think it's going to be great, because again, a lot of the time in the late game, you're running around with 100 morale because you've been winning every battle, you have every food under the sun, and again, I think that's a really good way to improve simulation battles, and I'm hoping it's going to make it so you can auto-resolve more of the rubbish battles without losing a stupid amount of soldiers in the late game. They've obviously also as well implemented tons of fixes to the battles themselves, improving bugs, etc. The main thing I wanted to talk about right here was the improved ladder queue behavior, so agents now respond to new orders instead of staying locked into their scripted positions. This was always really frustrating in the game when you were like maybe getting slaughtered up the ladders, but you make the breach through the gate and you give the order for your soldiers to abandon the ladders and they just refuse to do it. There's also a few other options which I assume is also fixed as well. The AI would just not listen to you in sieges. I'm hoping they've managed to sort that one out. But yeah, this is a good improvement to the sieges, again fixing some issues that we previously had. You can also, if we make our way down to the character development system, you can now also import heroes. So if you have a really cool hero from one campaign, you can now bring them in with this cheat command to yeah, basically have them continue on in your campaign. It's kind of a minor thing, but still cool nonetheless. If you want to expand heroes, maybe you want to like play as Jon Snow, but you don't want to play it, you can't play as like the previous Jon Snow. So it's a cool way of kind of maybe yeah, importing certain characters from different saves. They also changed the cultural bonus for the Empire as well. So previously it reduced garrison wages. Sorry, they didn't change it. They just made it so that it now affects the owner of the settlement rather than the culture of the settlement. Which I think is pretty interesting. Previously, instead of, yeah, the settlement's own culture. So previously, if you took a settlement outside of the Empire, you wouldn't get that bonus. Now it's whoever owns it. So as long as an Empire Lord is in control of that for the culture bonus, that will now apply. I also imagine it will also apply if you get a bunch of Empire Lords in your kingdom. So again, that adds some like strategy in there of like, oh, maybe you want to get some Empire companions and give them into their own party and then do some stuff. Again, that's a nice little change that we have. Clans, parties, and also random events. So we now have a new bandit type called Deserters. These are basically whenever there's a big battle, they'll generally spawn these deserter factions. They're going to be much more of the higher end bandits than say anything else that we currently have in the game compared to looters or mountain bandits or whatever, forest bandits, etc. The deserters will generally be more professional soldiers around tier 3 to 4, and they will be giving you better loot. They'll be harder to defeat. So again, it's more like a mid-game bandit faction that you're going to want to be taking on. There's also chances as well that they'll group up into bigger groups as well. And it's nice. It's nice to have more of a mid-game threat when it comes to bandits, because generally, as soon as you get to a certain level in the game, bandits just never cause you any issues. They're more of like an early game plague, so it's nice to see this. Again, I would like to see them take this even one step further and have more of like a, have like a bandit boss that even in the mid game you're like struggling to defeat, maybe with like some really big areas off in like more no man's land. There's a lot of territory where there's not a lot of lords, so it'd be kind of cool if they ever added in like a big like deserter boss or something for the factions that you had to go and defeat. That'd be kind of cool and add some extra flavor outside of just pointless wars with everybody else in Calradia. On top of that, we also get party patrols as well. So party patrols are a new I guess allied unit, a unit that will spawn from a specific building being built in the game. The guardhouse, the higher upgraded settlement project you do, so the more you improve this specific building inside of a castle or a city, the more of the patrol party will grow and get stronger and have better units in. And this party is basically designed to kill bandits around your villages and also attempt to take on the smaller raiding parties that your enemies may send. It's a really cool feature, something I've been wanting for a long while. Something like Improved Garrisons does this, so it's cool to have it actually in the game, and it's a nice way of just keeping your settlement safe. The more they get raided, the more like security goes down in the settlement. They also increase security as well by patrolling, so this is going to be a very important building, and I'd love to see them add more buildings that do have these type of effects into the game, where you can kind of like, you build this building, it generates a party, the party keeps your land safe, and then in turn, because of that, it then generates more security for your settlement. Like, it's a really cool loop, and I want to see them do more stuff like this. And honestly, it makes like the guardhouse one of the most important buildings to get up in your settlements as quickly as possible, because it will just help you, give you extra soldiers and stuff. And it would also be cool to maybe get these patrols to follow you as well into battle. It'd be kind of interesting. We now also have random events in the game, and again, when I saw this, I wasn't super impressed by this. I'm like, yeah, random events, it can't be that cool, it is what it is, just some stuff popping up. However, after playing it yesterday on stream, I was really impressed. So there's over 100 different events in the game, and they pop up as you play. However, these basically appear off your actions in game. So I was I think leaving towns, and I left the town and I got an event that basically was like, there's lepers outside, they're asking for money, the local populace don't like them, and then you had 4 options to either like send them away, give them money, and each of these options gave you different bonuses in traits. Again, I think traits are really underutilized and pointless at the moment, so that was a bit whatever. Like, it doesn't matter if someone's cruel, like it has realistically no in-game effect that I've noticed in 2,000 hours plus of the game. There's gonna be some people who argue they're the most important thing. Trust me, they're not. But some of the other things, some of the other like rewards and consequences were that you got a relationship with lords, and also what they call like notables inside of the castle, and that actually has a real in-game effect, because then all of a sudden, if you pick for one to make them like you can now recruit a lot more soldiers from them in the settlement. You can also as well get them to help you out with influence as well, which we'll get onto in a thing that they implemented in this patch in a second. You actually get them to be loyal to you, which is really cool. But again, that's like a real world, like in-game use for it. But you pick these things to make them like you, and then all of a sudden, like, you might annoy someone else, but you're then getting more soldiers. And that's the type of rewards I want to be seeing from these random events, is not necessarily certain traits, because again, unless they change it, they don't do anything, but the actual like in-world, like, lords like you more because you pick these options, or you get more money, or I don't know what you could do. Maybe you find, like, you start a quest chain or something through these events, stuff like that would be really cool to see. And yeah, I was really impressed, because as I said, it was like, as I was doing stuff, events were popping up related to it. I had certain Valandian soldiers in my army, another one, and because I have Valandian soldiers, they wanted to do the specific thing of like, this Valandian ritual to bury the enemy Valandian soldiers, and they were really happy with it, but it annoyed my other soldiers and stuff. Like, it was really cool because I have certain things in, they were all interlinked, and yeah, it was really impressive. So a big plus there with the random events. They've also changed up how the Sturgeon culture bonuses, I think they're again with the Nords coming in a month or two, they're trying to make the Sturgeons feel a bit more unique. So they've now made it so that instead of increasing infantry upgrades to troops, they now make it so the villages produce more grain, and then they also have made it so that armies are gathered with 50 50% less influence. So the Sturgians should be able to bring their armies together and actually make larger armies as well, being able to spend that influence, which is kind of nice. They also removed all the round shields as well from Sturgia, and they also changed a bunch of different shields as well from the other factions to make them, I guess, better fit their faction. Again, preparing for the Nords to release and being a bit more unique. I actually really don't like the new Sturgian shields. I think they look super ugly. Now that they've lost all their round shields, they have kind of like a half kite shield, and they look awful in my opinion. So yeah, I'm not a fan of that, but still cool nonetheless. They're at least getting some new stuff in. They also made tons of improvements to the AI party movement for not only AI parties but also armies as well, so you should see them way more effective. They're also, as well, one of the things I highlighted here is parties are now more likely to visit those settlements with sufficient food supplies when they need to replenish, so they're going to be a bit smarter of where they go to resupply their food before anything else. But yeah, just tons of fixes, tons of improvements to the general AI, that you won't see them getting starved out or anything, even though I didn't really see that much in the more recent updates whatsoever. And also as well, reducing the campaign map movement speed, I actually didn't highlight this, of all parties by 20%. As a result, the cavalry and footmen on horses campaign speed bonus now provides a smaller boost. Yeah, that's a pretty big change actually. Just having smaller armies on the campaign map is pretty interesting. On to armies, and don't worry, I know it looks like we have a lot to go, but there's a big old fix section below, so there's not actually too much to go, so don't worry too much. But yeah, so we have army changes. So they've also improved the way that armies function, and basically making it so that armies and parties are level to make their decisions less destructive and more deliberate and consistent. These changes intend to avoid suicide attacks and small armies against targets they cannot beat. So basically, if an army is most likely going to lose a battle, the army is going to try and avoid that rather than headlessly charging in, and basically they're just trying to put them into a better situation. Armies will also disband if their average party size ratio drops below 40%, which should hopefully generate more interesting battles and make it so that the AI is going to be fielding these larger forces rather than kind of like these overlords in one army and just end up getting steamrolled. They've also made it as well so the AI can spend more influence when summoning armies. This will again result in just more larger armies. Armies also now only target settlements they can realistically capture or take with heavy losses. So again, they're not going to be going on suicide missions. They're not going to be sat there sieging a settlement for 700 days just because, you know, they have slightly more men, but they have no chance of actually taking it, which is pretty nice. And also armies that have lost troops and have fallen below the strength needing to capture a settlement will now just simply disband after a period of inactivity, allowing them to reform later as a stronger force. And then finally, armies will no longer attempt to siege settlements already under siege if the attackers have a 5x strength. So a lot of the time you'd see these castles and then like armies would travel from across the map to reinforce the siege and help you take it, when they would be better off just sieging somewhere else and distributing your attack. So again, this is not something that I've managed to really test, but it does seem like armies should be more effective, more deadly on the campaign map, kind of go for their targets, spread out more and assault multiple targets. So I'm here for it. I'm excited to see how that actually functions. Kingdom diplomacy is obviously one of the biggest changes added in, and it's cool to see it. So right now we have both alliances and trade agreements. So alliances are depending on the relationship between rulers, shared or separate wars, existing tribute payments, ruler traits and other factors. Kingdoms can now decide to form an alliance through a kingdom decision. The alliances are between only two kingdoms, so there's no way to make like federations or anything, and every kingdom can have up to 2 alliances, which is cool. Allied kingdoms are also less likely to declare war on each other. I feel like alliances should make it so you're not going to declare war on each other at all, and you're kind of locked into that agreement, and maybe there's a big old negative for breaking that agreement. Would be kind of interesting, and they're more likely to wage war against their allies' enemies. So yeah, our first little glimpse of diplomacy is all pretty cool. One thing I would like to see them add and implement in is like showing this top thing right here. The alliances are formed depending on relationship between rulers, shared or separate wars, existing tribute payments, etc. I'd like to see that visibly seen on the diplomacy screen when you're hovering over it. Right now, like, you have no idea if you're just need to kind of impress the leader a little bit more, or, you know, go to war with one of his enemies to boost it up and actually form an alliance. You have no idea if that's going to like actually do it, so it'd be cool to have more information to inform your decision on your campaign and form these alliances. But yeah, overall, alliances are great. Having, you know, multiple people in the war is going to be cool. Something I haven't tested, but I'm interested in is whether or not you're able to actually join your allies in battle. I assume you can, because generally when you reward the same person, you can join that person, like a different faction's armies in a war. So it'd be really cool to maybe be able to have like a, yeah, like have like a, I don't know, like a combined army or something would be really interesting. But overall, it's a great start and hopefully something we'll be seeing. You can also, again, call your allies to war, but you have to pay them amount of money. I think for me as a brand new kingdom, it costs like 400k to bring certain factions into joining me, which sounds like a lot of money, but by the time you're there, you have that money to burn. And I think it's nice that there is a money sink there to actually spend and bring them in. And I think the more closely matched the factions at war are, the cheaper it is as well. On top of that, we also have trade agreements coming into the diplomacy sphere. So trade agreements are basically, again, the same thing, the relationship between lords, etc. Again, I want to see this actually visually represented on the diplomacy screen. Basically, all this does is it makes it so it's more likely for caravans to visit the other kingdoms. So again, you can encourage your caravans to go to a certain kingdom, get a bunch of resources, and then come home. Once again, much like the alliances, this is a really cool start to the agreements, but I'd like to see this taken even more, because like as long as you're making money, like you don't really care where your caravans go, you don't really care about the goods. So it'd be really cool to be able to set up these trade agreements, and then maybe your kingdom is allowed to trade at a discounted price. Like maybe you don't have to pay the tariffs of a town or something. That'd really make these trade agreements worthwhile and a way for you to make a lot of money. I also really hope they completely overwork how caravans work, the ability to like maybe set up trade agreements, being able to set troops inside of your caravans, being able to give them goods to go off and sell. I feel like you have a really amazing opportunity to make caravans as unique as workshops are now, where you can supply them with goods, sell the goods, etc. Also, please give us trade experience for doing stuff like this. Please give us trade experience for our workshops and selling the goods, and, you know, maybe being able to do everything I just said, and with the trade agreements, you know. I think it's the same when it comes to the roguery stuff. Like, encourage the player to do these things by giving them experience and making it very obvious that they can get experience by doing these things. And all of a sudden, we have all these extra paths of gameplay and stuff. Like, that's like a really important thing, and something I really hope they spend the time to do. Speaking of the economy and trade and also caravans, you can now actually tell your caravans where to go, which is cool. So you can restrict them from specific kingdoms, and you can set them up for a home settlement as well. So home settlements are basically going to be where they kind of start their journey, they go off, sell their goods, and then they've made it so that they're much more likely to return to that home settlement. So again, bring the goods from foreign lands and bring them back to your settlement. So you could set up some cool things. Again, I really wish they would give us an option to like set a trade route and then just allow the player to micromanage it, and allow them to micromanage it from like the diplomacy screen or something. And like, even though like it maybe kills immersion a little bit because you're not there in person, I think it's cool. I think there's a line that you can cross where you can add really cool gameplay by letting someone do it remotely, and then instead of them having to go to these caravans, because half the time your caravan's like halfway across the map and there's no way to contact them, and you ain't gonna go chasing after the caravan. So again, some cool changes to the caravan stuff. I still feel like the system needs an overhaul, but it's still cool nonetheless. On top of all of that, they have also changed up with the economy how much taxes villages make. They make a little bit more money through taxes, and also the increase to castle taxes as well has gone up a lot to support the larger AI garrisons, which I thought was kind of important. Means basically we're going to be getting these bigger garrisons, going to make siege battles a bit more interesting. But if armies are bigger up here, then again, I guess larger garrisons are more important. You can also now parlay with people inside enemy settlements, which is a much needed thing. Like, I can definitely count a lot of times where I've wanted to talk to an enemy lord, or I had a quest, or there was a friendly lord inside an enemy territory and he refused to leave, and I could never talk to them, and it was always really frustrating. Now, by simply just alt-clicking a settlement, as long as you're close enough and a high enough clan tier, you can then have a conversation with someone inside an enemy settlement, which is great. It's a really small improvement, but a good one nonetheless, and I'm happy that they implemented it, because on them niche situations where that does come up, it's really frustrating. So it's cool that you can now talk to them. Also, it's kind of great. You can maybe try and like bribe enemy lords to join your side, like the clans to leave their kingdom and join yours by parlaying with them, therefore weakening the defense, which is kind of a cool feature. We also have notable supporters as well. So this is what I was talking about with the random events and improving your relationship through the events will actually come back and really benefit you in this situation. So now you can actually get notables, which are the people inside of cities and towns that give you soldiers, own workshops, etc. You can now, if you get a high enough relationship with them, you can have them support your clan, which will give you daily influence for every supporter. This is great on a whole wealth of different levels because not only is influence awesome at, forming armies and keeping your forces together, having larger forces in the mid game, but also if you're a mercenary and you have a bunch of people supporting you and you're just generating influence, it's a great way of just like making tons of money through a war. So again, pretty nice right there. You also as well receive loyalty bonuses if notables is one of their own towns. So again, if you have the support of notables inside of your own kingdom, they'll also be increasing the loyalty as well, which is great. And but not only that, they'll also reduce the loyalty inside of enemy supported towns as well. So it's a great way of causing rebellions and a whole wealth of other things. So I like this. Again, it's a small change, but one nonetheless. We then move on to the Battalion culture bonus right here. They've increased their veterancy rate, so this means they'll basically be getting better militia. I think this is maybe just a way to help Britannia out. They seem like a faction that gets wrecked a lot of the time, and also as well they've increased the number of militia spawning after successful sieges, which I'm hoping will reduce the like towns basically flip-flopping back. Like it gets taken, the army goes off to conquer something else, and then someone comes in, sieges it, and then it flips. So again, this will hopefully just make kind of the flip-floppiness of war a little bit nicer. Then I said, obviously there is a lot of improvements. They've changed and updated a ton of the quest things right here, making them, I think a lot of the things I saw was like these quests now spawn a lot more, which is really, really nice. New dialogue options, they've changed up a whole wealth of things, improved performance as well, which is nice. Again, tons of crash fixes, some changes to multiplayer, not a lot to multiplayer, but still some changes. They have also added in some new holsters for the bows, which I saw, and they do look really nice actually. It was, again, a tiny change, but one nonetheless that is very much needed. Then move on to the combat side of things. So they have changed up how combat works. I spent about 3-4 hours messing around with it, and it does seem to be improved quite a bit. So they kind of made a step forward. It's nowhere near like RBM level of AI. However, it is still an improvement. So the AI cavalry is tons better now. They are way more accurate with their charging, and you'll see them on the battlefield get a lot more kills in general. They still massively struggle to charge down missiles. Again, I still feel like maybe charge damage needs to be increased or something, but now the cavalry is much more accurate at killing whatever they're fighting. So you'll notice that, especially with the higher tiers, having better stats should be a big beneficial boost to them. A lot of the times in previous patches, you notice cavalry would like charge someone and then just swing and then completely miss, whereas that has a lot of the time been eliminated. And I've seen when cavalry do connect, they generally do get a lot of kills. I've noticed you want to have much like a thinner line rather than deep lines, because there's no trample damage and the charge damage is basically non-existent. So yeah, you want to have a long thin line so that they can swing their weapons more effectively, basically. With that, they've also as well changed up the melee AI as well, making them way more effective in general. I've noticed that the AI, it doesn't rush into battle as much, which is cool. So again, when the battle is fighting, in the smaller battles at least, you'll still notice units clumping and just running their way forward. But in the larger battles, there will actually be reserve lines as well. Not every soldier will rush into battle and swing wildly. There'll be some soldiers waiting back for gaps to fill, and that's a good improvement. Again, it's not quite RBM level, but it's still good nonetheless. They have also changed a lot about spear bracing as well. Like, this is cool again, but I think it's like one of those features. I don't know. I was messing around with spearmen. The spearmen feel okay. They need to make it so you can brace your spear with a shield and a spear at the same time. Because realistically, the only way I ever really see this happening is with with pikemen, and you're never going to have just an army of pikemen because they're going to get slaughtered. So the whole spear bracing is like kind of whatever, because generally in the larger battles your units aren't going to be doing it because they're spear and shield or whatever. So they need to make it so you can brace maybe with a spear and shield, or give us a formation to do that, because even if you have pikemen in your unit, they're then mixed in with a ton of other soldiers, and then the pikemen go to the back of the line or whatever because they don't have shields, so they don't get shot by missiles, and then in turn, because they're at the back of the line, they're not spear bracing. So give us the ability to either, you know, go back to the old system where you can stick certain units in different party groups or whatever, would be really nice. I mean, you can make kind of like a pike specific unit, because right now there's only a spear or a polearm specific typing that you can pick whilst going into battle. And again, that can be spearmen, that can be anyone, right? Not just people who can spear brace. So again, I think that system needs to be reworked in general. But again, this is kind of like, yeah, it's cool that they have this now, but I don't really see it ever really coming up in mass improvements. You'll also as well notice I've highlighted this bit in red. Missile units are ridiculously OP once again. I had like 100 cataphracts up against 150 crossbowmen, so they were outnumbered by 50%. But they're the best cavalry unit in the game, charging down a tier 3 Valandian crossbowman, and they got absolutely massacred. It wasn't even close. I think they killed like 40 of them. Like, range units seem so OP. They've always been really OP, and now they're just even better at slaughtering cavalry, which for me always feels a bit depressing, right? I feel like if I get a cavalry, if I manage to kill their cavalry and charge down their missiles, it should be a slaughter, but the missiles just sit there and shoot your cavalry, and cavalry is still useless at pushing on a massive archers, which again really sucks. And then finally there's just been some improvements to the shield stuff. I definitely did notice the AI was better at blocking in general, so when I was fighting them it did seem a little bit more a little bit better at just actually defending itself, which is always good to see. It'll make battles last that a little bit longer. And then that's kind of where we wrap up a bunch of modding improvements and changes as well right at the bottom of the list. However, I don't believe that the modding support or the new modding tools have been implemented yet whatsoever. I also heard from modders as well, this patch has really changed how Tail Worlds do stuff. In their back end, they change a whole wealth of stuff, so I think it's going to be a while until mods do update. But again, it's cool that we're getting this system, because hopefully it's preparing the modders for the big War Sales update. So hopefully a lot of the systems that they've changed in 1.3 will be the same as what they do in War Sales, so the kind of the interlink for work won't go to waste in that time. But that is going to wrap things up for the video. Again, loads of great improvements, still stuff that they could definitely work on, and improvements I'm hoping that we'll see going forward. But yeah, this is a real positive step in the right direction. I'm hoping Tail Worlds are going to be, you know, kind of continue to communicate. We're obviously still excited and interested in seeing how naval gameplay is going to work going forward, but yeah, hopefully this is the beginning of some really cool features that they're cooking up. Having stealth in the game, as I said, is great, and there's just so much they can do with it. Again, I don't like to be like, oh, I can't wait to see what modders do with it. I can't wait to see what modders can do with it, but it shouldn't be up to them to have to do a lot of the stuff. So when I say like, oh, I'd love to see these features, like, I want Tail Worlds to do these features, not just modders. However, I'm very excited for like the Shikuho ninja playthrough or whatever with all the new stealth mechanics and stuff. Forbury is going to be taken to a whole nother level. I'm hoping someone can create like ambush missions now and stuff. You know, like there's so much that we'll hopefully see. But I'm also hoping Tail Worlds don't just leave it to the modders like they normally do. Come on, let's see some awesome stuff. I want to see, you know, the diplomacy stuff, expanded coalitions. I want to see, you know, a new screen UI for the diplomacy stuff. I want to see ratings. Oh yeah, there's like so much they can do. But overall, I'm really positive about this patch. This is a really good patch. As I mentioned, you can either jump into it right now if you're on Steam, or wait until War Sales releases, which once again, I believe they'll be on console when it does drop. So let me know what you guys thought of 1.3 down below in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one.